Um, Good evening, colleagues. It is an honor, as always, to welcome you to our evening session of where we are discussing things related to the incoming exams. So today I am pleased to introduce Chief Superintendent of Customs AY Ibrahim, who will be delivering a session on the harmonized system targeted especially at the incoming promotion exams. Chief Ibrahim is a highly respected and experienced officer, and he's also a recognized expert on three pillars of customs, customs core competencies. That's origin, classification, and valuation. He is also a passionate educator and a mentor. He is known for his clear and concise style of teaching and his ability to make complex topics easy to understand. I'm confident that this evening, Chief Ibrahim will be the session he is delivering will be useful for all that are preparing for these exams and those that are here for the purpose of adding knowledge concerning our day-to-day duties and tasks. So he has been an inspiration to most of us. He is a dedicated officer that is committed to excellence, and he has been our role model. So, Chief Superintendent of Customs, AY Ibrahim, we are grateful for your willingness to share your expertise and your knowledge with us. So, I also enjoin all the audience to prepare their questions regarding the harmonized system, including even the articles of convention. So, push down your questions in the group, raise your hands. You will all be allowed to at least ask questions. We can even go through past question papers. You can go through them, and then at the end of the session, we will be able to deliberate on them very well. So I am yielding the mic to Chief Superintendent of Customs, Ibrahim AY. Ibrahim, you can go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you, SD. I don't know what's happening today. I don't know why my system is not connecting this, but we could still go ahead depending on when I get the connection. It's only my phone that is able to connect this. My laptop is not connecting. Maybe I should restart it.
Yes, I think while you are having the lecture, you can as well try and update the app on your system. Usually it will work.
Okay.
If there is a pending update, usually it helps.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start while we get to that level. Basically, this evening, I wish we'll be seeing the slide first before we do this thing, because the slide is full of graphics that make understanding easy.
I said you can equally forward the slide to me so that I can share it. You can either send it to me or Goni. We can be able to share the slide on your behalf.
Okay, I think I should send it to you.
Okay.
On your WhatsApp.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think that will help.
If you want, you can give you 5 minutes.
I'm trying to download. Oh, you have. Give me your email now. Let me just use email. SD.
Let me forward the email on Telegram right away.
Okay.
Okay, it has been sent.
On the group Telegram. Okay, I've seen it.
Yes.
I've seen
Okay.
it. All right, good. Okay, email. And this will help for now. Otherwise, I don't know what this bagger.
So the audience, please pardon us for the little delay, please.
HS. I'm targeting this HS. You
Okay.
just share it for us.
Okay, let me just go right ahead and check it.
It's gone. So check your site.
Okay.
I have a lot of documents, but the way it is designed is actually designed in segments, such that whatever segment we're done with, we should be able to have a comprehensive understanding of what actually is there.
Okay, I think it is just coming in. So let me just download it, then we can.
I don't know what is this one.
But does it seem as if you have any updates?
It's not even opening. It's not even, I mean, the Telegram is not opening on my laptop. What I'm using now is my phone. I've tried every other thing is opening here, including WhatsApp, but the Telegram is where the challenge is. Perhaps I needed to update
I
this.
think I'll be able to share the screen now.
Please help us to share. Help us to share. As it is, this one is speaking grammar
But
here.
you see my screen?
Yes.
You can see it. Okay.
We can see you.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, good. This is actually a tariff classification. Forget that technical training that is written there, my colleagues. It is not actually very technical, this one, because it's supposed to be meant for exams, where we're supposed to actually focus on things we expect to see in the exam. So we're going to be focusing this night on tariff classification. Next slide. So let me be using my slide. Once you see me moving, I'm using my slide here. Okay. The next slide here is telling us the objectives of this training this evening. We say we're going to be identifying the various elements of the nomenclature of the harmonized system. We also said that we're going to be making distinction between the element of the nomenclature that has a legal force and the element that is purely just informative, that does not have a legal force. We say we shall be having a better understanding of the structure of and the organization of the harmonized system nomenclature. Then we should be able to also apply the general interpretative rule. The essence is that correct determination of HS code plays a vital role, very fundamental role, for the collection of customs duties and for the implementation of fiscal policy, as well as so many other measures that we use it for. Then the content of the presentation is going to have section 1 that deals with introduction to the harmonized system. We're going to have the different parts of the harmonized system nomenclature. We're going to be having in section 3 the organization and the structuring of the harmonized system nomenclature. In section 4, we're going to be having rules of classification. That is the general interpretative rules. Then from there, we'll move down to look at step-by-step process on how we're going to classify and the various classification tools. Then in section 1 now, introduction to the harmonized system, what I try to do here is actually to give us the basics, or why do we have to have the harmonized system itself? Why the nomenclature? And the need for the nomenclature was born out of pressing need for a standard international nomenclature. For us to have to ensure that there's systematic classification of goods all over the world. And the reason is because we need to classify these goods in a sound and reliable basis in customs tariff. And we also are supposed to adopt a common language that could be understood by everybody. An example of this is a situation where an item may be referred to in Nigeria as computer. In some other country, you cannot call it a computer. An item may be referred to a truck in Nigeria, to mean a heavy truck, heavy duty truck. But in America, for example, if you say truck, you are simply maybe referring to a Jeep. So there are different language ascribed to different items that are traded internationally. So there was a need to have a common language for everybody to be able to speak in the same direction, in a uniform way, and understand every other person in the international trade. Then the next is the facilitation of facilitate the collection of data to establish and compare statistics. This is actually for statistical purpose. You can't use this description because, like I said earlier, this description could mean different things to different people. So a situation where you have a standard code for each item, that code could be used to extract and establish statistics around that same item. The next is to actually replace the existing classification system at the national and regional level by a universal nomenclature, that can be understood by everybody. The next reason is to ensure that there's proper implementation of government policy. The next is to monitor prohibition and restriction of goods. And finally, it is also used in determining origin. Then looking at the history, I decided to actually start the history from the formation of the League of Nations. League of Nations was the association that was formed, the international organization that was formed after the First World War.
I think we are losing you if you can hear us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think we can hear you now.
Where did you lose me first?
The League of Nations, just the...
Good. I was saying that the League of Nations, I decided to start my history from the League of Nations because that was actually the basis where we have conscious effort to see how we can use international trade to promote international collaboration, to promote international peace and order. But there were other nomenclature that existed even before the League of Nations. Countries were then using alphabetical index to describe the product. They have their product description alphabetically and they assign rate of duty. And we also had other countries using the specific system of duty, to collect duty. And we also have other countries arranging their commodity in different formats. However, the League of Nations actually brought what was popularly known as the draft nomenclature, which was actually produced around 1931, and it was approved in 1937. It was known as the Geneva nomenclature. And it had 991 headings that was grouped into 86 chapters. Go to the next. That was grouped into, okay, you are there. That was grouped into the next, into 86 chapters. The chapters were arranged in 21 sections. And this was what was used then. Then after that, we saw the emergence of the Second World War. We saw the failure of the First World War. We saw the collapse of every structure of the League of Nations. And we then experienced the Second World War, which actually break down every development in the area of the development of the harmonized system. And that war lasted up to 1945. So after 1945, after the Second World War, there was a formation of the United Nations, again, which had to bring up the idea of the need to continue work on the nomenclature. So in 1945, we saw the formation of the European Custom Study Group. and they were formed to work on the Geneva nomenclature. That is the earlier League of Nations nomenclature. And by 1950, the study group submitted a draft of their own proposal, and it was titled the Brussels Tariff Nomenclature. In 1974, the Brussels Tariff Nomenclature was renamed Customs Cooperation Council Nomenclature. I try to summarize these things so that we can easily remember them in the exam hall. Then in 1983, the CCCN was replaced by the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System in 1988. And the harmonized system entered into force precisely on 1st of January 1988. Sorry, the renaming of the CCN into the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System was done in 1983. As at 1988, it's now entered into force precisely on January 1st, 1988. So question might arise as to when the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System entered into force. The right answer there will be January 1st, 1988. Then looking at the next slide, looking at the legal framework, the Harmonized Commodity Description Convention is actually at the international level. It's actually our legal framework at the international level. And down here we have what is popularly referred to as ECOWAS Common External Tariff. And this was because we are members of ECOWAS and we have decided to actually migrate to customs union within the ECOWAS community. So we operate what is known as ECOWAS Common External Tariff. And the latest version we're using is 2022 to 2026 edition. Then again, within the CET, we also have what is popularly referred to as Custom and Excise Tariff Consolidation Act number 4, Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1988, which was what actually, enabled Nigeria to adopt the earlier convention on the January 1st, 1988. Then within the current SEMA, within the current NCS Act, sorry, I keep saying SEMA, within the current NCS Act 2023, there are relevant sections that we try to look at that actually make provision or give or that has given us the legality to carry out classification work. And one of these is section 23 of the NCS Act 2023, which made provision for information relating to tariff classification. Here, the section of SEMA is saying that customs must provide information in respect to tariff classification, must publish like the tariff books, must publish every other tool, must provide general interpretative rules for the purpose of classifying goods. Then section 24 of the Common External Tariff, of the Nigerian Customs Service Act 2023, also talks about advanced ruling on tariff classification. Perhaps if we have time, we will talk about the advanced ruling later. But advanced ruling was one of the questions I also saw, where question was asked as to which of the WCO instruments, allows traders to write to customs to ask for advanced classification of their consignment. The answer there was advanced ruling infrastructure. Then section 44 of Nigerian Customs Service Act 2023 also empowers to take sample for testing and tariff classification. You can carry sample for the purpose of subjecting it to analysis, to testing, for you to be able to classify it correctly. Then section 67 has to do with the declarant declaring his own classification, his own HS code for his own consignment. Section 68 has to do with determining of classification by customs using the international convention, the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System. Then we also have section 140 of NCS Act that has to do with tariff classification of goods at the special economic zone, at the free trade zone and all of that. So we're all empowered to carry out some of those things Then we also have section 269 that has to do with appeal against any tariff classification decision. You must understand that importers are given the opportunity to appeal. And when we come to look at dispute resolution, there are different mechanisms for actually going about this appeal. But they have the right to appeal and say they don't agree with whatever classification decision, and their process that are needed to be followed to resolve the dispute, either internally or externally, and whether informally or formally. Then section 273, actually the service can determine classification of goods at any time within 7 years. So we still have this issue of whether we can call back documents within 7 years. It is still repeated in section 273, where we can still call back document and reclassify that document, and also ask the importer to go and pay. Are we together? Then next slide. This we have dealt with. This has to do with the different parts of the harmonized system. And here we are looking at the different parts of the harmonized system. Here we are concentrating on the general interpretative rules, which is one of the parts of the harmonized system. There are basically 5 different parts. I don't know if we have to keep this at the back of our mind, so that when they ask, there are basically 5 different parts. We'll have to fix this. The first one is the general interpretative rules. The second one is the list of description of commodities. Then you have the notes, the section notes, the chapter notes, and the subheading notes. These are all what we call the legal notes. Put together, these 3, they are called the legal notes. Question might come, one of the following is considered as a legal note to the harmonized commodity description and coding system. And they will give you the options, and they will try to bring in another one. The one I saw, they brought in statistical notes. So once you see anything like a statistical note, you know that they are going into another place. They are not mentioning. That one is not part of the legal notes. Then we also have things like the anything notes, the alphabetical index, and we also have the compendium of classification opinion. We'll see all of this when we get to the details of the tools.
I think CSC Ibrahim, your connection is breaking. CSC Ibrahim. Adili Ogoni, if anyone can. Yes, I think we have lost him. Let me ask on the group.
You loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. I think.
But I was hearing everything you're saying.
Okay. But honestly, this thing has. But go ahead. No.
Loud and clear. I am on the part of the HS nomenclature. I don't know if you heard what I said. I said there are 5 different parts. Go back there. Different parts of the nomenclature.
That was clear. So the present, you can go ahead on the present slide.
Okay, good. So we are going to be looking at each of these different parts or section of the nomenclature. And the first one we earlier say is the general interpretative rule. These general interpretative rules are actually 6 of them. There are 6 general interpretative rules that have been established, and their function is to ensure uniform legal interpretation, such that the way we will interpret it here in Nigeria is the same way somebody in America, somebody in China is going to interpret the classification of that item using that rule. Then the rules also are set out as a principle that must be followed. It must be followed sequentially in carrying out classification of goods in the nomenclature. It must be absolutely followed in order of sequence. This is the example of the list of commodity description. You know, we mentioned list of commodity description as one of the parts of the harmonized system that also has a legal backing. Then we also mentioned the notes. We say there is chapter notes, there is a section notes, and there is also subheading notes. And this is exactly what next slide is saying. Go to the next slide. That's exactly what the next slide is talking about. It's talking about the different notes in the harmonized system. These notes, they have a legal backing, and they form an integral part of the harmonized system. And they normally come immediately after the title of the section, or the title of the chapter, or the title of the chapter, as the case may be. You will see them being explained. So they are placed immediately below the section or the title. Then these notes are of different types, and all of them have the same legal backing. All of them have legal backing. There are notes that are excluding products from being classified in particular chapter. And there are other notes that are including a product to be classified in a particular chapter. We're going to see different examples as we go along. There are also notes that are defining the meaning of a particular term, a particular jargon that has been used in the harmonized system. Then there are other notes that are only giving instruction and guidance as to how to go about classifying a particular product within the chapter or within the heading. Next slide. So the next is the example of a note excluding. Here, if you look at example in note 1 to chapter 86, you will see that a note there is excluding, certain product from being classified in that chapter. And it will clearly tell you that this chapter does not cover. Then it will now begin to list the chapters that are not covered, the items that are not covered in that chapter. And example here is that it is telling you that chapter 86 that deals with railway, tramway, and locomotive does not cover, certain items like railway, tramway, sleepers. It does not cover railway, tramway, construction material of iron and steel, and it will tell you where you should go to. It does not cover electric signaling or traffic or safety or traffic control equipment. What they are simply saying here is that even if these items are for railway, they are not covered under the chapter of 86. So meaning that they are excluded from that chapter. Go to the next slide. Why I'm a bit going slow is because I'm still trying to see if I could perfect my system from this end. But let's keep pushing this way. The next slide is showing you notes that include other items in a particular chapter. So even though those items are not mentioned specifically, they are to be brought into this place because the note will tell you that you should classify those items in a particular chapter. Example given here is note 1 to chapter 13. Go to the next slide. We have to be fast on this. Questions might not necessarily come on some of these examples, but what they might be asking you is that the following are legal notes in the harmonized system. Then they will now state the different notes. They will tell you the section notes, the heading notes, the chapter notes, and the subheading note. Then they will now bring another one that is not part of it, and they will tell you except. So it's left for you to actually know that one of them is not part of what we are talking about. Then they can also tell you the following are types of notes that we have. They can use the word not excluding, not including, not giving a meaning of a particular term, and not providing explanation, or giving a guidance. Then they will now bring another option, and it is left for you to know that they are not including certain items, they are not excluding certain items, and they are also not that are actually defining the meaning of a particular expression, of a particular terminology that is being used. Like if you look at this one, example of note 1 to chapter 40, it was able to define what is called robber. The reason here is that what is called robber in Nigeria might not necessarily be what is called robber in Ghana, in China, in Europe, or in America. What we call robber here, if you go to my village people, when you mention robber, they will begin to carry plastic bucket and show you as robber and all of that. So there's a need to actually define some of these terms so that it can be situated within a particular context. Then we also have another definition there that says the expression cast iron. They are trying to define what cast iron means so that we can all together, the whole world can be at the same page in terms of the meaning of the context of a particular item. Next slide. We saw the notes giving instruction. In the next slide, we saw the notes giving instruction. And these notes are only going to tell you, what to do when you are confronted with certain situation. And they gave example in note 3 to chapter 82, where they say when you are confronted with a set consisting of one or more of knives of heading 82:11, and at least of equal number of articles of 82:15, you are to classify them in 82:15. When we come to the rules, you also see where it says that you should classify, in the last order. But there are certain, instructions that might not even tell you to use the last order. But once you have the note guiding you, what it means that the note has a legal backing, you do not have any option than to go by the provision of the note. Then the next slide is giving you also an example of different other notes. We have these are different notes. If you look at notes, can you hear me?
It is break, but it is okay now.
Okay, we're on this page. These are just example of different notes. When you check on your own at your own convenient time, you see the note to these different chapters, different sections. It's just showing you these notes are only giving you example of how they tend to exclude certain items, how they tend to include certain items, how they tend to define certain context, certain terms, how they tend to give certain directives and all of that. Next slide. The next slide has to do with the organizational structure. How is the HS organized? How is the harmonized system organized? Harmonized system is organized in these 4 different parts. They could come up with questions. Now, the following are parts are different, the organization and the structure of the harmonized system, except they can tell you have the section, you have the chapters, you have the heading, you have the subheading, and they will now bring up something else to confuse you. But it's left for you to know that one of them is not actually part of the things that we have mentioned here. This is how it is organized. It is organized such that you have sections, you have chapters, you have headings, and you have subheading. Let's see how these things are. Go to the next slide to see how the sections are being arranged. What we have in the harmonized system is 21 sections. There are 21 sections. This is actually for ease of references. The organization is to enable you easily navigate the HS because it's a whole lot of book. I mean, in fact, very, very big one for that matter. You are not expected to cram everything in the book in your head. It is not possible, except for the likes of Goni that, they've already crammed all the whole Quran, the Holy Quran, not to talk of this one. So, but the essence of this one is actually to enable you to navigate through the book, the tariff book, to be able to go front and back, where to locate an item and all of that. And each section has a title and a number. And the number is in is in numerical numerical number, and it is sequentially arranged. It is sequentially arranged such that you begin to have the raw material at the beginning and gradually into the semi-processed and gradually into the processed and finished product down to luxury goods. The way the tariff, I don't know if the time will permit us to look to even discuss how it is being structured. Tariff is structured in different ways. There are different theories to actually explain how it is being structured. But probably when we get to the end, or when we understand this thing, I'll try to come up with some of these theories so that we can see how it is being structured, you know, for people to easily understand. Then here we must mention clearly that the title of these sections that we have talked about has no legal force. It doesn't have a legal background. Classification cannot be determined by just a mere title. The fact that a heading says plastic does not mean every item of plastic must go there. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide talks about the different chapters in the tariff. And we're meant to understand that there are 99 chapters in the tariff. However, at the level of WCO, only 96 chapters are effectively being used to classify goods. At the level of WCO, 3 chapters remain unused. Chapter 77 is reserved for future use in the harmonized system. So it's reserved for WCO. While chapter 98 and 99 are reserved for specific countries' use. They can come up with questions to ask you which of the following chapter of the harmonized system is reserved solely for WCO future use, or for the future use in the harmonized system. You should know what they are talking about in chapter 77. Then they will also ask, they can also ask which of the chapters of the harmonized system is reserved for countries' national use. You know what they are talking about is chapter 98 and chapter 99. So these chapters are reserved for, we are going to look at them, and we're also going to, if time will permit, we're going to look at how Nigeria, America, Canada, and some other countries have been able to utilize 98 and 99. However, most countries have not used their 98 and 99. Then, like we said of a section, each chapter is also identified by a title and a number. However, for section, we say the numbers are numerical numbers, are Roman numerals. But for chapters, they're actually digits, figures. And just like the case with sections, chapters also do not have legal force. They are just for ease of reference. Title of chapters cannot be quoted as evidence that particular goods is supposed to be classified in a particular place or not, just by a mere quoting of the chapter. So titles are only indicative. They are only telling you, just giving you guidance, just giving you directive to say that go to this chapter, but they are not necessarily going to, help you to even classify your item, or they only guide you. Titles can be used as guide to help the user to find easily specific categories of goods in the nomenclature. Next slide. In order to have a structured nomenclature, each chapter refers to a particular product. So these products are now grouped into each chapter. If you look at, for example, chapter 1 has to do with live animals. If you look at chapter 2, has to do with meat and edible meat offer. If you look at chapter 3, has to do with fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and other aquatic invertebrates. So each chapter actually groups certain items and put it there. Then if you look at chapter 52, has to do with cotton. Then down to, chapter 70, that has to do with glass and glassware and all of that. So each one has to do with a particular category of product. However, it does not necessarily mean that chapter classifies that particular item, because the title of the chapter is provided only for ease of reference. It does not have legal backing in classification. Next slide. Then we'll now look, next slide. Then we'll now look at the headings. In the next slide, this is another level of structure of the harmonized system. I must not forget to mention that the chapters number has 2 digits. When you see 01, it's telling you that this is a chapter, meaning chapter 1, which is life animal. But when you see 21, it's telling you this is chapter 21, you know, edible preparations and all of that there. So this one is a heading. The heading is identified by 4 digits. When you see 4 digits, you are now at the level of the heading. And the first 2 refer to the chapter in which that heading appears, while the 3rd and the 4th digit indicate the position of the heading in that chapter. So you can have the example given here is chapter 43:01, meaning that the position, meaning that the first one 01. I don't know if you are hearing me.
Yes, we are with you.
But most importantly about this heading is that it has a legal backing. They could ask questions on all of these things, because the major thing about classification is to know which of the parts or which of the section or which of the area of the harmonized system has legal backing and which one does not have legal backing. Headings have legal backing. When we come to look at the general interpretative rule, we will see what the rule says about the heading. It has a legal force, unlike the chapters that we mentioned that does not have a legal force, and unlike the section that we mentioned earlier that we say they don't have legal force. But the headings have legal force, and the headings are being recognized by 4 digits. So at any point in time you arrive at classification of any item at 4 digits in your CET, you should know that at that level you are already at the level of having a legal standing to classify a product there. Next slide. The subheadings is also another subdivision of the heading. That is why you say subheading is a subdivision of the heading. These are also items that have been further breakdown. They have been further broken down into other items, other specific items. And the subheading have been introduced to better identify products that are in the heading. So you now have specific products under the subheading. Then to also enable contracting parties to implement specific taxation scheme. It is at the level of the subheading that contracting parties can assign their rate of duties. They can assign their percentage that they want to charge on that particular item. It's also for better monitoring of import and export as well. And we must also understand that the subheading, just like the heading, also has a legal standing. And like I said, once we come to look at the general interpretative rule, we'll see why we say it has a legal standing. Next slide. Which is, you can see the example of how these things are. You can see how trying to get this thing. You can see how it is structured. You can have the first 284 here, that's the first 2 digits, is referring to the chapter. You can see 07 here is the position of that heading in this chapter. It's referring to the heading. Then you have 34 is the subheading. So all these 6 digits are referred to as a HS code. Next slide. I think we move down to where you have, next slide, we move down to where you have the structure properly. So that next slide, we move down to where you have the structure. Next slide, proper. Go down ahead. So here, you see the way it is structured. You have the section, as the number 1 there at the top. Then you have the chapter, you have the heading, and you have the subheading. This is how the tariff is structured. Then down here, you have the national tariff. National authorities can also add the HS code. And if you are in customs union, you can also relinquish that power to the regional body that will now, like we did in ECOWAS, where we relinquish our rights here to the ECOWAS Common External Tariff to actually begin to assign HS code that will be adopted by everybody in the community. So this is it about the structure. The next topic, next slide, is to look at the general interpretative rules. So these are, we mentioned earlier about the 6 rules governing classification. These are where we're going to discuss the details of the general interpretative rules. And you can see that classification here says GRL1, then you have GRL2 to 5, and you have 6. Then you also have the legal note, and you also have the heading and the subheading. So everything here, everything you see on this slide has a legal backing. The general interpretative rule itself, the legal notes, the headings, and the subheadings. And we shall look at them one after the other. Next slide. Okay, the general interpretative rule actually set out the fundamental principle that must be followed to correctly classify an item. The GRI has a legal force, like we said earlier, and we say it comprises of the rule 1, rule 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the notes, and and stuff like that. So go to rule 1 now. Rule 1 has to do with, next slide. Rule 1 has to do with the principle. The classification. It has to do with classification of goods that is legally determined at the level of the terms of the heading. What this means is that every product is to be classified based on the terms of the heading, based on the description of the product at the heading, based on the terminology of the product at the heading, based on the wordings of the product at the heading. I'm just looking for different examples to use on this. Based on, for example, if you say phone, telephone, we should be able to see it at the heading, which is the 4 digits. Also say telephone. The wordings of the heading must actually be the same with the wordings of the item. The terms of the heading, the terminology of the heading or of the item must be the same with that of the heading where you are classifying the product. It must be the same. The wordings and the terms and the description of the product, sometimes it's going to be description of the product, must be the same with what is described at the 4 digits headings of the tariff. We will see examples as we go along, but I like using phone because it's close to me, and computer and laptop is close to me. And if you look at by description or by description of function, if you look at 8471, that is talking about automatic data processing machine, where laptop and all the computers belong, is specifically describing the product. So the heading, the terms of the heading must either describe the product or mention the specific name of the product or the terms of the product in that heading. And the example of it here is the one we have in chapter 39. They try to show you how the title of chapters are for ease of reference, like we mentioned earlier. Here you have a plastic chair. Ordinarily, a plastic chair is supposed to go under plastic and articles thereof. Plastic and articles thereof cover every plastic item. However, what this example is telling you here is that the fact that this plastic chair is made up of plastic does not necessarily mean that it must be classified under chapter 39, which is titled Plastic and Article of Plastic thereof. Meaning that for you to classify any product, you must understand that there are exclusions to it. Rule 1 has told you that item must be classified based on the terms of the heading and or any relevant section or chapter note. So the example of the note is what they are giving you here. The note here is excluding this plastic chair and is taking it somewhere else. And this kind of a note is a note that we say not excluding. And if you look at the example here, it says this note does not cover article of chapter 90, article of chapter 91, article of chapter 92, article of chapter 94, for example, furniture, lamps, light and lighting fittings, illuminated signs, prefabricated buildings. So this chair now, by classification, has to go to chapter 94 as furniture rather than as article of plastic. That is why it is necessary for you to read the notes so that you can understand where you are supposed to classify an item. Not just because by a mere title that says plastic and plastic thereof, then you now say that every plastic item must go to 39. They are telling you that there are situations when you go there, the not excluding will exclude certain items from there and take it to another place. The not including will now bring them back. We'll see other examples of that. Go to the next slide and the next slide. So you can see what they're saying here. He says that it's supposed to be furniture. This one is supposed to be a furniture other than article of chapter 39. So principally, rule 1 has 2 components. The components that classifies the item are the terms of the heading, and the components that classify the item by the note, by either the exclusion note, by the inclusion note, by the explanation note, or by the note giving guidance. So that is rule 1 for you. Questions might come as to the following is one of the components of rule 1. Then they can give you option. Terms of the heading and relative section notes is the answer for rule 1, because rule 1 deals with terms of the heading and any other note. And these notes could be of different types, like we have said. Next slide. You need to push quickly. This is rule 2. Rule 2 is talking about, is divided into basically, 2, where you have rule 2A and rule 2B. Rule 2A is specifically talking about classification of items that are incomplete. Items that are incomplete, unassembled, disassembled. Where you cannot classify item by that rule 1. For example, there is no terms of any heading that describe that particular item. There is no any notes, any section notes, any chapter notes, any subheading notes that has actually, included or excluded that item. But the item is presented before you is incomplete, is unfinished, is unassembled, is disassembled. What this rule is telling you to do is to go into the tariff and look for the heading or the note that classify the complete one and also classify the incomplete one there. So the heading that classify an incomplete fan is going to be the same heading that will classify a complete fan. We've had cases where people import fan and it doesn't come with the motto, and they come and they tell you that it's supposed to be classified as parts. The rule does not say that. The rule says that even if it is incomplete, it should be classified as complete. If you check explanatory note, you'll see further details about that kind of classification. So here is looking at unfinished article or incomplete article. It is also looking at incomplete means that it is not complete. Unfinished means that you have started, you have not completed the article. Then it's also looking at unassembled and disassembled. However, the major thing here is that we must know that the essential character of that item must be present before you can take it to the complete one, or to the finished one, or to the assembled one, as the case may be. So that is that with rule 2A. I mean, there are so many examples there. We don't want us to take our time. This is a complete bottle. Then if you move, you see this is unfinished. When you blow this guy, it's going to give you this bottle. But if it is presented in the tariff, if there is a provision for this other item, then you have to take it. You have to take it there. But if there is no provision for it, and it is presented to you as incomplete or unfinished, then you have to look for where the complete one is in the tariff and put it there. Next slide. These are all examples that we can see. These are different examples. This is musical instruments. You can see it is presented in disassembled form. This, when you assemble it all together, they will give you this complete musical instrument. What the rule is telling you is that when the musical instrument is presented to you in disassembled form, it is saying that go to the heading that classify the assembled and put it there. Let's move to the next one. Time is not on our side. The next one is the B part of it. Here is talking about classification of mixtures of substance, that is not specifically covered by one heading. Rule 2B refer to mixtures or combination of material that is not specifically mentioned, and how you classify it. You're going to classify it in that heading that covers that kind of a mixture, even if, once it's specific in the tariff, once it is mentioned as a combination in the tariff. The next one is Rule 3. It is also divided into 3 parts. Rule 3A, 3B, 3C. 3A has to do with specific description of goods. That you look out for the heading that specifically describes an item. For example, if you have 2 headings to be considered, which one do I look out for? One clearly say shavers. One say appliances for removing hair. I mean, if you know the item you're bringing is shavers, you specifically go to the heading that says shavers and classify the item. So this one is just saying that specific description shall be preferred against a general description. Next slide. So the B part of it, these are examples. These are other examples. Go to the next slide. Don't want to waste time on this example. There are so many examples. Once we forward the slide, you can read them on your own. Go to the next slide. Continue to the next slide. These are all examples. Go to the next slide again. These are all examples. Once we hand over this one, you can actually look at it. Then you also have the 3B. The 3B is talking about classification of composite material, of mixture of different composite material, and it is normally referring to the rule for the essential character. Here again, it's saying that if there are 2 headings to classify a particular product, and none of these headings gives a more specific description of that product, that you should classify that product in that heading, which gives them their essential character. So you look out for the essential character of the product, the functions, and all of that. Then these are examples of some of these things that are in set. Then the same Rule 3 explain to you how you are going to classify items when you see them in set. For example, if you look at first aid now, what exactly is the essential character? Is it the box itself, or is it the items that are inside, or is there any specific heading that actually talks about that? These are things you should consider in classifying some of these sets with other things inside. Next slide is talking about Rule 3C. Go to the next slide. Rule 3C is saying that where you cannot find a specific heading in the tariff that describes a particular item, and you can also not find a heading that talks about the essential character, but there are lists of headings to be considered. It says go and put the heading or classify the item in the heading that comes last in numerical order among those that merit equal consideration. What that means is that you arrange them serially, and take the one that comes last. This is actually for everybody to have a uniform interpretation, uniform understanding, and uniform application of the harmonized system. So once you cannot see the 3A, which talk about the specific heading, all of the heading you have seen to classify that item, no one is specific, and no one has talked about the essential character of the item. The tariff is saying that arrange these headings that you are considering that are supposed to be classified, that these items are supposed to be classified, and classify the item in the one that comes last in numerical order among those that merit equal consideration. The purpose of Rule 3C, it must be pointed out that only heading which equally merit consideration can be legitimately taken into account, because we say only headings have legal backing. So only headings that merit consideration. You don't just arrange the entire tariff into numerical order and say you are carrying one. Only heading that you think that that item can be classified is where you're going to put them in numerical order to classify them. Then we move to the examples, these are all examples of how you are going to classify items based on Rule 3C. Then Rule 4 is talking about most akin. That where you cannot see a specific heading, you cannot see essential character heading, look for a heading that is most akin, that is very closely related to the item of import, and classify the item therein. Then Rule 5 is talking about classification based on cases, based on packing materials, and is divided into two. There is Rule 5A and there is Rule 5B. Rule 5A is talking about classifying cases, boxes, and similar containers which are presented with the article therein, which are intended to be used together with the article, like musical instruments, like your eyeglasses. The item is just to be classified and forget the casing, because they are intended to be used together, they are imported together, they are packed into that thing. Then the B part of it is also telling you that there are certain containers that are for repetitive use that you can actually go ahead and classify them separately and classify the items separately. Rule 6, go down to Rule 6. You see example of some of these things I've already said. Example of the musical instruments, this is it. Example of some of these things I've already mentioned. These are all examples of what I've mentioned regarding Rule 5. If you go down to Rule 6, Rule 6 is talking about classification of items at the subheading level. We earlier said that subheading has a legal force as well, just like the heading. So it's telling us that everything we talk about determining classification at the heading level, now apply it at subheading level. And we said earlier that subheading has 6 digits. So this time around, you are not applying it on 5 digits, but you are applying it on 6 digits. You could bring up a question and say 6 digits classification is determined at what level, and they will give you options. You should know that they are referring to the subheading. And Rule 6 is very clear about that. It says for legal purpose, meaning that subheading has a legal force. For legal purpose, classification is to be determined according to the terms of subheading. Those terms we mentioned in the heading earlier, we are now mentioning them in the subheading. According to the terms, the wordings of the subheadings, the terms of the subheadings, the terminologies, the description at the subheading, meaning at the 6-digit level. And this one too has a legal force, you must understand. So the same thing, you apply Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4, Rule 5. Apply them now at the level of subheading. That's what Rule 6 is saying. If you come to Rule 3, we talk about specific, we talk about essential character, we talk about last in numerical order. The same thing you did at the level of the heading, do the same at the level of the subheading. Identify the subheadings that are more specific, and use them rather than generic subheadings. Then, if you cannot get the one that is specific, identify subheadings that describe the essential character of the item. If you can't get that, then arrange those subheadings in numerical order and take the ones that come last and use it. Next slide is the summary. Next slide. These are just examples. Next slide is the summary of what we've been saying all this while. Rule 1, we say is the terms of the heading, we say in terms of the heading. Then we also have the terms of the heading and the subheadings under Rule 6. Then what we should understand is that Rule 1 is very key. You must apply them in order of preference. In fact, people say 90% of products that are internationally traded are traded based on Rule 1, and every other one. Just jump answer this question. Go to the tools. Let's quickly round up. These are the tools used. These are different tools that we use in the classification. You have the harmonized commodity system, harmonized system and legal text. You have the compendium. You have the correlation table. You have the alphabetical index. These are all lists of tools that can help you to do classification. Quickly move to the next slide and the next slide. Next. Next, I try to see how we can bring up the common external tariff. The CET is divided into different subdivisions. These are, A, it is divided into 4 different parts. It has 8 schedules, 20 articles, 21 sections, 99 chapters. Chapter 77 is reserved for possible future use in the HS. Chapter 98 and 99, I'm repeating myself, are reserved for countries, for contracting parties use. That is for member nation use. Nigeria, like we said earlier, has utilized 98 and 99. Next slide is talking about the different schedules of CET. Schedule 1 has to do with import duty. Schedule 2 has to do with exemption. Schedule 3 has to do with import prohibition. They normally ask questions in this area. Schedule 4 has to do with absolute prohibition. Schedule 5, excise duty. Schedule 6, they will ask you which of the schedules of the CET, is talking about export prohibition. You should be able to know that it's talking about schedule 6. They might ask which of the schedules of the CET deals with evaluation of goods for excise. You should know that they are simply referring to schedule 8. Next slide has to do with points to consider when you are doing classification. They might come up with all these things and say except, then they will bring another one to confuse you. The first thing is identification of the product. You must identify the product. The second thing is mode of presentation. Mode of presentation will tell you whether it is to be classified based on Rule 5 in terms of the kind of packing and all of that. Then the use and the function of the item, the degree of manufacture, whether it is raw material, it is finished. All of these things are to be considered. Then the composition, that is the constituent material, is also to be considered, in classification of goods. I might bring up all these things and bring another confused one and try to confuse you as to which one is not to be considered when classifying goods. The next slide has to do with different steps that we take in classifying goods. Classification of goods involves the following steps. 1, find the heading that appear to describe the goods. Find the heading. That's what Rule 1 is telling you to do. We told you that the aspect of Rule 1 says the terms of the heading. The second one says the note. If you cannot find the if you find the heading, try to read the note. Consider the code listed as it relates to the item to be classified. Check the section, the chapter, the heading, the subheading notes for exclusion, for inclusion, for interpretation, and all of that. Also check the explanatory note for more explanation or more information as the case may be. Apply the general interpretative rules. See how for every classification you are going to do, making sure that there is a rule backing you to do that classification. Then classify the goods in the appropriate chapter, appropriate heading, and appropriate subheading. Next, it has to do with classification fraud. Next slide has to do with classification fraud. These are likely fraud to be committed in classification. I mean, they misclassify the product deliberately. Misclassification is a deliberate attempt to mislead customs by the use of false declaration regarding physical description or properties of the product to gain undue economic or commercial advantage. There are several examples in respect to that we can see in the MI system. The other one we have the other time is somebody bringing in polypropylene, telling us that it is copolymer, telling us that there is no difference between polypropylene and copolymers of propylene and all of that. Somebody can also use packing to deceive you, can bring in something that is supposed to be retail and will tell you that it's actually a bulk shipment and all of that. The next is reason for misclassification. You're jumping. We're almost done. Reason for classification. Go back. Reason for misclassification. Gaining reduced duty rates. Evading prohibition, restriction, import quotas. Avoiding exchange control regulations. Evading imposition of anti-dumping and countervailing taxes. And evading internal tax. And the next one is misclassification fraud indicators. What are the indicators that will show you that they're actually trying to misclassify the product? Generalized description, incomplete documentation, incorrect origin, high duty item or risky item, goods imported under patch shipment, unlikely market destination, use of vague address, ambiguous terms of payment, first-time importer. These are some of the risk indicators that will tell you that they are trying to misclassify the product. I said I was going to talk about advanced ruling infrastructure. Advanced ruling has to do with a situation, next slide, where the importer apply to customs. I have to fill in this, where the importer applies to customs and asking customs to advise him or to tell him where his item is going to be classified. This is actually done before importation, so that once he imports his item, he doesn't have to go and be asking for the correct HS code of that item. Next slide has to do with resolution of classification disputes. There are informal way we resolve disputes, and there are formal procedure for resolving disputes. And down there you have different examples of classification tool that we mentioned earlier. You have the explanatory notes, you have the compendium of classification opinion. There are different examples. Next slide. Keep going down. There are different examples of different classification tools that can help us to classify items properly. You have the database itself. There's a database, WCO database, where you can see how you can access some of these tools on the internet to classify the products accordingly. And once we're able to do this, we should be able to classify our items properly. Thank you very much. Sorry, I tried throughout to see if my system can connect, but as I can speak to you, even up to now, it's still not connecting.
Okay.
So I had to remove the slide and all of that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Superintendent of Customs, AY Ibrahim. We thank you for the presentation. It was enlightening. It is an eye-opener to so many of us, honestly, and I believe that this knowledge will go beyond the impact it will have, will go beyond its use in the incoming exams. So I think at this juncture, we will be inviting questions from the members of from the audience, so that it will be deliberated upon. I think SC Ogulu is already unmuted. Kamal Gwiwa, okay, Omale Bridget, let me allow you. Please, other admin, you can unmute anyone that wants to ask questions, please. Thank you. Bridget, you can go ahead, please. Kamal Gwiwa, go ahead, ask your question. Okay, let me go down and see if we can have. Okay, Goni, please, there is a question on the platform. Can you just go ahead and read it out so that we can? Okay. Okay, I think nobody is raising his hand.
Who posed the question?
I think the Barau.
I didn't understand his question. I didn't understand what he's trying to portray.
Okay, I think I just
the Mustafa chapter.
Yes, I think Ibrahim has discussed that one already. Bala Mustafa, you can go ahead if you can. Bala Mustafa, go ahead, ask your question, make contribution. Okay.
EBC, you can go ahead.
You say? EBC?
EBC.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
has been updated.
I think Akafa. Let me unmute Akafa. Ahmed Abdul Hamid. Let me unmute you.
Right. Somebody is saying, can you shed light on the distinction between general interpretative rule 2B
Okay.
and rule 3B?
Okay, sir.
We discussed the rules, and we said that the rule 2B is actually talking about mixtures and combination. Mixtures and combination is to be classified where if you have a mixture of different items, if there is a particular heading that describes one of the mixtures of those items, the rule says go and classify it there. But rule 3B is saying that it's in sets. They are in sets. So look out for the heading that gives the item the essential character. Out of this set, out of these things that you have in the set, in the item, we know which of them is the essential character has given the item its own essential character. I have this fan before me blowing, and on this fan, I have the fan blowing. I have a radio there. There's a radio set. There is where you charge phone. There's where you connect USB and play music. You get the point. But the essential character of the item is fan. So I will take it. I will ignore all of these other items and just take it to where fan is. I don't know if you understand the difference.
Okay, thank you. Then Olumide.
Okay. Good evening, colleagues. Oga Ibrahim, good evening. My question is as regards these headings and subheadings having legal force. There's a particular question I saw. I think it's a past question. I'm trying to recall it now. It talked about a classification dispute that was taken to court. And the things that were listed, they now said we should pick the one that cannot be tendered in court. So they wrote section notes, subheading notes, general interpretative rules, and harmonized system explanatory notes. Which one is it?
It's the explanatory note.
But you said these sections don't have legal force.
Sections don't have legal force. The title of chapters don't have legal force. The title of we said that these things are segmented into section, into title, into chapters, into headings, into subheading, and each of these things has title. The title of sections don't have legal force. Okay. The title of chapters don't have legal force, but the title of the headings have legal force. The subheadings have legal force. However, there's a note. Every of these things has a note. There's a section note, there's a chapter note, there's a heading note, there's a subheading note. We say that all the notes have legal force, except explanatory note. Explanatory note does not have legal force. Explanatory note does not have legal force. And we even say, even the note, there are different types. They are not including, they are not excluding, they are not explaining the meaning of a particular time. It's different from explanatory note. The note, the legal note in the harmonized system explaining the meaning of a particular term is different from the document that is called explanatory notes. They are in 5 volumes. It's different. So the note explaining, the note excluding, the note including, all of them have legal base. So from the options you gave, the answer is explanatory note. However, let me just shed light. Like I was discussing with a colleague, it doesn't mean that you cannot present explanatory notes in the court. Whoever says you cannot present explanatory notes to explain, to be able to defend a particular classification is not correct. It's just that it doesn't have a legal force. So even if you're presenting it, it is only a supporting document, a supporting information to help you support whatever legal rule you want to present.
So I think, okay, let me add a little bit of explanation here. in a situation whereby somebody presented explanatory notes before a judge, and the other party has legal notes, some things like the chapter note or the section note, then that particular chapter note and section note should take precedence over whatever the explanatory note have said. I think that's another angle to it.
So the answer
Yes.
is
Okay,
So I
thank you.
think
law does not have a legal backing.
yeah. Bala Mustafa, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
My question goes in relation to common external tariff. In the area of change in chapter, change in tariff heading, as well as change in tariff subheading. So I will want to know, please, you throw a little more light on at what level of transformation does a change in either 2-digit or 4-digit or 6-digit relate to either of the following, either a change in chapter or change in tariff heading or change in tariff subheading? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I was trying to explain, tariff is structured to be designed along value creation. The more the value addition, the more you are gradually migrating and changing, you know, from the raw to semi. The same way you're going to be migrating and changing the numbers. That is one school of thought about on understanding the structuring of the tariff. It is designed along value creation, along value chain. The more the value addition, the more you move the HS code. The raw materials will come early. Why? As you're adding value, you are changing. As you're adding value to semi-finish, you're changing it to the next level. As you're adding value to the finish, you're changing it to the next level. That is one school of thought. Another school of thought is looking at it and saying, no, it should be that the tariff is structured to look at the organic and inorganic, you know, creation of the world. The organic has to do with plants and animals. It's saying that plants and animals are the organic creatures, that come at the beginning of the tariff. In fact, even at that, you have to have the animals first before you have what the animals can eat, plants. And that is why that school of thought is looking at it and say that that's why we have live animals in chapter 1, then you have the meat and you have down before you have the grass and what the animals can eat at later parts. Then that has segmented tariff into two, the organic and inorganic. And where you have the inorganic is looking at items that are under the earth, items that are below the earth. If you look at things like down chapter 25, chapter 26, 27, is telling you mineral resources that are below the earth surface. And even at that, is looking at the ones that are on top first, before the one that goes down, before the one that is down, before the one that is down, and all of that. That tariff is structured to revolve around that. So if you are assigning HS code, that's what you look out for. Is it up, or is it an organic or inorganic? If it is organic, you know, is it plant or animal? If it's inorganic, is it at the top of the earth crust or at the bottom of the earth surface? Then some other items are just mixture of these organic and inorganic products. So many items. If you look at vegetables, oil, you're looking at items that are from plants and plants and animal. That's item of chapter 15. Those oil. Then if you look at other manufactured items, they are either items that come from plants or animal, or items that come from the earth crust, or mixture of organic and inorganic. That is another school of thought on how this thing is being designed to move on. Some other school of thought are looking at it from the perspective that it is designed to revolve around the human needs. And those school of thoughts look at the Abraham Maslow's theory of hierarchy of human needs, where they emphasize that tariff is also revolving around satisfying the basic needs of man. That the basic needs of man is actually to feed himself. And that is why you have the early chapters of the tariff dealing with things that has to do with what the man can eat. You have the live animal, the man first, or the animal first, before you begin to have the meat, what the man can eat. After the man has been able to satisfy himself, he now begins to think of, other things like the clothing. Then that is why in the tariff, down the line, after all he could eat, feed himself, then you now begin to have those things that will help him to provide himself clothing. Then after that, down the line, you have those other things. After he has been able to satisfy that need, you have other things that will help him to provide himself a shelter. So that school of thought is looking at it from the satisfaction of human beings based on their hierarchy of needs. That tariff is also revolved around that axis. So many other school of thoughts have come up with their own explanation as to how they understand the structuring of this tariff. But in either way, we know that it progresses from the raw material to the semi-product. It's like that. If you look at chapter 1, talked about the live animal. Chapter 2 is talking about the meat of the live animal. You cannot bring preparation of meat here. Here we'll be talking about the raw meat. You get the point? The same way when you are discussing even clothing, you should be discussing, if you are discussing under aspects of saying human beings need to satisfy themselves with the need of clothing, you should be talking of human beings having to wear clothes before they wear cap. Are we together? You have to wear clothes on your body. So these are highly technical areas that. Hello?
Okay, I think there is another angle to what he asks. There is another angle sometimes you will see in the question saying that when you have change in 2 digits, it is telling you have change in chapter, while 4 digit means change in tariff heading, while 6 digit is talking about change in tariff subheading. I think maybe that would be Bala?
Yes, that's my question.
Okay,
yes,
okay.
So if you see 2 digits, you know that it's talking about chapter. If you see 4, you know it's heading. If you see 6, I didn't know that's the only thing you are.
That was the question. We were going too far. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very
but
much.
you put it, Bala, one person can even decide to think of it in terms of rules of origin, honestly.
Okay.
So thank you.
I was just listening. Just as you intervened, I understood it better. Because that was my question.
So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Akafa.
Yes. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, Ibrahim.
Good evening.
All right, sir. So my question is, going by what you say how the tariff is structured, I don't know whether it's an oversight. What is the importance of those 4 parts in tariff, sir?
the importance of
the 4 parts.
Okay, that we mentioned in the tariff.
Yes, sir.
It's because time will not permit us, but they are is the structuring for you to understand, where to locate what and how to locate what. I don't know if that is what you're asking, but they are deliberately structured, so that you can be able to see those things the way they are, so that you can know where to go when you're looking for what exactly.
Did they have legal backing?
You said?
He's asking whether they have legal backing.
No, not really. What has legal backing has been mentioned. Within the part, if you look at part 2, it says that it's talking about general interpretative rule. So part 2, you can say it has legal backing. But if you look at the part 4, that's talking about citation and appeal and interpretation, you cannot. So even within the part, there are aspects that we say they have legal backing. If you are talking about the GRLs in the part, those ones categorically will tell you, yes, it has legal backing. But it is not the part that has legal backing. It is the general interpretative rule that has legal backing.
Okay. Okay, then we have another question from the group, from one big man, Dahiru. Dahiru said he's thanking you for the delivery, and then he said, can we have examples of utilization of the reserves chapters of 98 and 99 by Nigeria?
Examples. I think what happened was that Nigeria had other areas that they really wanted to amend based on their supplementary protection measures, to protect their local industries and give certain concessions to them and introduce certain CKD, SKD program. And the ECOWAS did not allow them to actually temper. Let me use the word temper with the tariff. So Nigeria decided to utilize, as the only option remaining for her, utilize 98 and 99. If you look at 98, it's specifically talking about motor vehicle for bona fide assembler. Importation of motor vehicle for bona fide assembler. Here we try to create HS code and still reduce the tariff rate for bona fide assembler. At the ECOWAS level, you don't have anything like 0% for bona fide, for CKD assemblers and all of that. But we created 98 so that we can grant such concessions to our local assemblers that import CKD items. Then examples under 99, under chapter 99, they are all stated in the tariff. And again, these are other items that are not motor vehicle or CKD motor vehicle that are called miscellaneous classification, where we decided to put them there and reduce the tariff rate. This is for our supplementary protection. This is to actually grant certain concessions to stimulate business activities, to grant certain concessions to industries in Nigeria that bring in these items. And if you look at the items in 99, items like additives or lubricating, while they are 10% at the other end, they're actually 5% here. Here, most of the items have a reduced tariff rate. For reason based known to government, they decided to reduce the tariff rate for these items. So if you are qualified, if you are a player in the industry, you should be able to actually be qualified to enjoy 98 and 99. The other time we had a circular that says anybody that is able to lodge his declaration under 98 and 99, it means that that person is qualified, that person has been certified to be a player in that industry to enjoy that concession.
So we have Alheri, Pius, Kim Shade, and maybe David. Anyone that can talk can go ahead, please. Or Malay,
somebody asking a question. This question says medicinal cigarettes are classified under which chapter? We've mentioned this. It's chapter 30, and the answer where we get our answer is General Interpretative Rule 1, which is Note 1 to chapter 24. Note 1 to chapter 24. Let's even look at the example that we said today. Note 1 to chapter 24, if you look at it, it clearly directs you on where to classify cigarettes. What we should know ordinarily, that cigarette is supposed to come under tobacco and tobacco manufacturer substitutes. However, if you look at Note 1 to chapter 24, it says that this chapter does not cover medicinal cigarettes. And in bracket, it says chapter 30. So the answer is B, which is 30. And that is when we say that this title of chapter 24 is just for reference purpose. But the classification is to be determined according to this note that tells you that this chapter does not cover medicinal cigarettes. And it says you should go to chapter 30. So the answer is B. That somebody has already answered it. Okay, good.
Okay. Any other? Goni, you want to talk?
No.
Okay. See, okay, BT will talk on your behalf.
It's okay. Thank you so much, presenter. You had a great lecture. I just want to ask concerning the legal backing you talked about. In terms of misclassification, deliberately done by the declarant, as you stated, for their own purpose, maybe trying to beat market and all. What is there a legal, like a penalty for such, and what are the penalties, and where in the NCS Act is it indicated? That is my question. Thank you.
We said that there's a provision for penalty, and I think that penalty, you know, it as before, it has been actually written. Where you misclassify, you have to pay penalty of 25%. And if you look at SEMA section 229 of SEMA, are you with me? I mean, we're used to SEMA. NCS Act 2023. If you look at section 229, it clearly made provision for penalty of 25% duty liability. So there's actually a penalty where you misclassify and you raise DM for him, you have to give him the penalty.
Thank you.
And that is even before conviction. If after conviction, he is to pay a fine of 2 million naira and or imprisonment for a term of 2 years, or even both. So okay, this 25% is before.
Kamal Guiwa, go ahead, please.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you, Kamal.
Thank the organizers of this well thought and structured presentation, especially Oga Gwani, Oga Ibrahim, and the USD, the moderator. My question goes as, please, I'm asking, how does this misclassifications relate to abuse in the allocation of quotas, please? Thank you.
Okay, all right, Brian is asking, how does misclassification applies to quota?
Recently, we're experiencing a lot of that, where people claim that they can, they lodge an SGD, and we see that they are lodging under 99, you know, but the item they are bringing in is not even item of 99. It's not supposed to be classified under 99. That's one. Two, you can be given a quota allocation, for example, you know, to bring a particular product or a particular species of a particular product, or to bring a product in bulk, and you ended up bringing it in retail pack. And the bulk has a concession of lower rate of duty, while the retail pack has a higher rate of duty, and you see people playing around some of those things. Then you also use quota for some of these evasion, in that even when your quota expire, you continue to use, you know, to import this item. Like people that import fish, if you check, most of them have quota. But at the end of the day, but we still have to check, as a service, we still have to check and follow them and make sure we track them down. Make sure they don't actually abuse.
21 on stick, I don't know why. Enough to go on.
Okay. Dahiru or David, do you want to say anything before we go?
Thank you.
Okay, Olumide, you want to ask again?
Good evening once again. Please, I want to ask, what's the position on duty and levy rates on vehicles? Do they remain as they were under 2022 fiscal policy, or has anything changed?
Yes, they remain as they were.
Okay.
Okay, David.
Yeah, concerning 98 and 99, a question can just come up. Who implements the fiscal policy in Nigerian Customs Service? We should know that it is the Tariff Department of Tariff and Trade. So let us have it in mind. The Tariff and Trade implements the fiscal policy. And when it comes to Chapter 99 and 98, whoever captures under 99 and 98 are already tied by the system nobody, you can't just venture into chapter 99 and 98 without being tied by the tariff department of the headquarters. So you must be tied already before you can capture under chapter 98 and 99. So I just want us to know this. When it comes to implementation, it is tariff that implements fiscal policies. And the chapter 99 is just the annex 2. The annex 1 of the fiscal policy. Thank you.
Okay, Brian, I think there is a question on the platform saying that do we have now 21 sections or 22 sections? With
21. 98 and 99 are part of 2021. There is no additional section. There is no additional section. Based on what the earlier speaker said about, I remember there was a question that they used to ask about tariff review board. I mean, there's a question that the answer was supposed to be a tariff review board. Is it that who set the rate of duty or something? I can't remember, but there's a question that I saw that has to do with actually tariff review board.
But Ibrahim, it is like on the printed on the tariff we have on our hands, there are like 22 sections there. Is there any change there or?
It's not 22. It's not 22. It's 21 section, 99 chapters. It's not 22 section. It's 21 section, 99 chapters. Two were reserved. 2 chapters under 21 section were reserved for countries' national use.
Okay.
You understand? 98 and 99 are part of 21 section. Tariff has never been 22 section.
Ibrahim.
Yes, sir.
Under in the tariff in 2022, 2026, we have section 22.
Exactly what the last speaker asked, but I'm telling you that we don't have anything like that. We don't have anything like that. Tariff is a creature of WCO. Harmonized system is a creature of WCO. They don't have section 22. The 98 and the 99 that they reserve for contracting parties use is actually under 21 section 21. Do you understand?
Okay, but that means the tariff unit of the Nigerian Customs Survey made a mistake of printing section 22.
Yes. Honestly,
yes, they did that, honestly.
Because under title of section 22, they said motor vehicles, bona fide assemblers, manufacturers, equipment, and components. Then miscellaneous classification. That's the title of the section.
There is no section 22 because section 99, 98, and 99 were already provided under section 21. It is just that they were reserved for contracting parties use. So if you want to use it, just carry it and use it, but still under that miscellaneous manufactured articles of section 21. So you are not to create additional section.
Okay. So I think I think let me unmute Osakwe. Then we take feedback first, then we call it till tomorrow then. Yeah, Osakwe, go ahead. Salihu Osakwe, first, anyone.
Good evening, Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you very much for your well-packaged lecture. But I don't know, is like you were talking about chapter, we are saying that chapter 20, you are saying chapter 21, there's nothing like section 22. I don't know if there's any, maybe secular to that effect that, or if anywhere we can read it, go and read it to know if that chapter 98 and 99 are part of section, section 21.
Okay, well, I will forward documents from WCO. You know, like I said, this thing is international. You know, understand? It's international. 98 and 99 is under section 21.
Under yes.
It's not under section 22. And what WCO did is to reserve that place for country use. not for them to go and create another section. I will forward the harmonized system handbook. Then I'll also forward other relevant.
So I think Ibrahim was right. On the level of WCO, what we have are only 21 sections.
I understand. There's something I want to say here. You know,
on the new tariff, they printed up to 22 sections on it. So this could be an oversight from their own end.
But SD.
Yes.
But do you know the title of section 21?
Okay.
The title of section 21 said work of arts, collectors, and pieces and artists. That's only chapter 97 in section 21.
Okay, yes.
Only one chapter under section 21.
Yes.
So you cannot say 98 and 99 will fall under section 21.
Yes, but we stand to be corrected anyway.
But that is the WCO. That the WCO.
Can I say something?
King, is it King? Go ahead.
Chapter 98 and 99 is not a new chapter; it's an existing chapter. If you say yes, it's an existing chapter. It has been there. They didn't add any extra chapter. They did not add any extra section. So if you are bringing, it's just being empty. It's not like it's not existing. It's existing. It's just that it's empty. Now that we have put in because of our own local needs, we have used those both chapter. I don't think there's an additional section to it because both the section and the chapter, they are existing. There's no alteration. There's no addition to them. We are just using the empty chapter, which is 98 and 99. For the fact that we are using that empty chapter 98 and 99, anything that is on 98 and 99 will fall back to section 21.
Can I say something, sir?
Exactly what I'm saying.
Go on.
The tariff book.
You know, the tariff has 99 chapter.
Yeah.
Chapter 77 is for future use. 98 and 99 are for contracting parties, which in our case is for industrialization. Are you getting me? If you look at chapter 99, chapter 99 and 98 and 99 is for Nigerian use alone. I don't know whether you are getting. So I believe that maybe based on this, okay, they say okay, because you can't find this other 98 and 99 under any session. You understand? I also believe
I understand you, but the point I'm making is that I understand what you're saying, but the point I'm making is that we don't even have the right to add any additional section to that tariff. We don't even have that legal right. We have to go back to WCO and the rest and seek for it. This chapter 98 and 99 is existing already. It was just kept for all participating countries to make use of, apart from the 77 that is general, that is for everybody all over the world. It's an existing chapter. So now that we are using it, we cannot go and create section 21 and 22. Where are we creating it from? We cannot go and create section because the section 21 section is existing already. The 99 chapters are existing already. Because we are just making use of those two remaining chapters, which is 98 and 99, it doesn't give us the right to increase sections. It doesn't give us any legal right to increase sections.
I think we can easily send a request for clarification to WCO and get the feedback. God's willing tomorrow.
Okay.
It's not only Nigeria that has implemented that.
Okay.
US implemented 98 and 99. Canada implemented 98 and 99, but they never created section 21.
Thank you. That's the point I'm making.
What they did is that you see this thing that we call procedure code, where you go and say procedure code for importation of this and that, procedure code for importation of the military, for importation of the armed forces, and all of those things, president and all. They created those things under their 98 and 99. So what is giving us to do what we want to do is chapter 98 and 99 without necessarily creating any additional
Section. Yeah. Okay.
That's what we use their own. But our own is that because ECOWAS say we cannot tamper with their rate of duty, we decided to create this one and do what we want to do with the rate of duty there.
So please furnish us with any information. We'll be very grateful.
God willing,
Thank
we
you
will
very much.
send the requisite inquiry and get back to you. So tomorrow we will be having a session on WCO 10 building blocks. And on Tuesday, we were having a session on non-intrusive inspection and then CITES. On Tuesday, we will be having 2. So thank you very much, guys, for your time. And we wish that all we discuss here will come to fruition during coming exams. So, Chief Ibrahim, thank you very much, and all the audience and those who have contributed by listening or asking questions. Yes, go ahead.
Please, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Kefas.
Please, thank you very much for the presentation. Previously, in the previous tariffs we had, there used to be a preamble that tells us the change in tariff lines, how many tariff lines will change. But for some reason, the one we have now in our command does not actually give us those particular breakdown. So I know that there are over 5,000 tariff lines, but in this current CET, can we please get the current tariff lines that are actually present now?
In the CET, right?
Yes.
The last other one used to be 6,127 or so. But this one, I don't know. I don't know.
No, I just check so that we can post it to the group for the purpose.
Okay, we'll check.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Kefas. I think we can call it night. We will equally post a video of all the deliberations in like 30 to 40 minutes. So thank you very much, guys, and we wish all of you good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.